I asked David and Greg to join me today because I want to have a behind the scenes conversation with the doors closed, and it's just us, and we're a band of brothers here, all of us, pinky swear here. We're not talking about this outside the room. Okay. So we're going to get behind the curtain. I want to talk about closings and mortgages. And I want you to talk about it. I know you have questions that you feel like too big of a dummy to ask. And now's your chance to ask, because we're all a bunch of dummies. This is mortgages and closings for dummies. Okay. So let's get started. David, let's start with you. Just how'd you get here? What was your path?
How did I get here?
I mean, we don't need your life story, but kind of give us
how far back you want me to go. I actually grew up in a family of lawyers. My father's an attorney. My grandfather's an attorney. I have an aunt that's an attorney. And so I kind of grew up in that world, if you will. And in late 70s and 80s, things were a little different then. There weren't cell phones and wireless communications. So there was a lot of talk about their work. And I heard a lot of it. And so I kind of grew up around it. I went to Syracuse University as an undergraduate up in New York. I'm from Niagara Falls, New York originally. Graduated from there in '92 and went to the Detroit College of Law at Michigan State. And I graduated for law school, and I graduated there in 1996 and was admitted to practice in New York shortly thereafter. Moved back to New York and practiced there for about 4 years. Did a little bit of everything, general practice work, a lot of real estate, of course, but did divorces, did some criminal work. And then I made my way down here.
So you're a little boy, you're like 8, 9 years old, and you wanted to grow up to be a closing attorney.
I did not.
What'd you?
Actually, a little side note. When I was in law school, talking with my father about areas of practice and living in a border town, Niagara Falls, Buffalo, bordering Canada, he said, if you really want to make a lot of money, you should do immigration law, because there's not a lot of attorneys that do it. And going to a law school in a border town, Detroit, they had international immigration programs, if you will. So that was kind of my track. And I graduated with a concentration in immigration and international law. And to this day, I've never practiced a single bit of that. So what I will tell you about, if you talk to a lot of attorneys, they will tell you that you usually end up doing something that you never thought you would do. Because you go to law school, you start learning about different areas of practice, and you may think you want to be a prosecutor, a defense attorney, corporate attorney, and then you get out of law school, and then you end up landing someplace, and the area of practice usually finds you.
So what is it about you New Yorkers? What are you all doing down here? And when are you going back?
We're not going back.
You're not going?
We're never going back. There's more of us coming too, but I promise you that.
What brought you down here?
When I graduated, it was '96. My sister, I have a younger sister that lives down here, and she came down here right around that time, had just graduated with her undergraduate degree, and her now husband, boyfriend at the time, came down here on a construction project, and they've been here ever since. So when I finished law school, moved back to New York. By the time I finished law school, I was married, had my 2 boys were both with us. They were 3 and 2 by the time I graduated. And we came down here to visit a few times. And the original plan was move back to New York, where we're from, where our families are. And we came down here a few times to visit, and just kind of looked around and said, what are we doing up in a old Rust Belt city, as we would call it? So it's been a good place to be.
Good.
I've been here about 21 years now.
Good. Greg, before I go to you, I want to quickly tell a story. Rip had a problem with the closing, and I don't know what y'all think. I expect to have problems. If we don't have problems, we ain't doing enough business. Rip, the reason you had a problem with the closing is you're doing business. That's why. Problems happen all the time. But this is where great business partners jump in. I don't expect people, I mean, perfect would be nice, but come on, you want that expected of each of us too? Right. But when it happens, I don't know if you know it, but she drives out to Rip's client's house and does a FaceTime closing to make it easier for the customer. And I don't even know if you're supposed to do that right now, are you?
We are still able to do that.
You
And
are,
I was
okay,
involved in the
good.
FaceTime. Like, yeah, we still have there's still a standing order because of COVID that allows us to continue to do video closings, both through the state bar and the governor.
That's what great business partners are. Great business partners aren't perfect. And if you're expecting your partners to be perfect, you're crazy. Okay. But when there is a problem, that's the kind of stuff they do. They get in a car and they go fix it. And they come up with unique solutions to minimize the disruption to your customer. That's all we can expect. Fair enough. So kudos to you, young lady. Okay. Good for you. Greg, you and I have known each other for longer than either one of us will disclose, but tell everybody else, how'd you get here?
Is this thing working? No. Is it working now?
Pull the button in.
All right. I met Mike in 1991, maybe 1990.
Okay, who wasn't born then?
There are a whole bunch of people not born yet.
Get out.
I know. That's what I was saying, Mike. Please don't ask me some of the questions you asked David because, I'm old enough. They don't need to know all of it. But, back when I was in college, I don't know that any of you were born back then, but when I was back in college, I didn't even know how to spell the word mortgage. It was 1990, after 16 years in the corporate world, that I got into the mortgage business. And then I met you a year later. And, I just been at it ever since.
And so that's been how long now?
31 years, and Tuesday was five months.
You sound like you got to talk to Morgan. You guys are like, it's your 31-year, 5-month anniversary. Okay, you and me forever, Greg.
Exactly. Amen, Mike.
Okay, so guys, tell me something. An aspect of, Greg, let's start with you. An aspect of your job, and while I'm doing this, I want you to be thinking about what's the thing you don't quite get that you want to ask these guys before we let them out of the room today. I'm going to come to you in a minute. But Greg, what's the aspect of your job that might surprise us? Something that we might say, I never thought about that.
Boy, when I think about what you deal with every day, that you're talking to clients, that's what we deal with in our business. Now, in our business, leads come from a variety of sources. I'm more of what's called a traditional loan officer, street loan officer, meaning, Mike, that what we do is we go out and garner our business just like you do. Some people will call on by owner, for sale by owners. In my case, I call on my real estate agents. And so I have to go through the same things that you do, the same fears that you have, picking up the phone and making a phone call. I get bad news. I have to pick up the phone. I have to call you. And that's not an easy phone call. It doesn't make any difference that I've been doing it for 31 years. That is not an easy phone call. I don't know what your reaction will be. And I'm going to call the other agent. And I don't know what their reaction will be, especially since I probably don't have much of a relationship there. So I think one of the things, Mike, that when you hear me or another street loan officer say that they carry fears, if they say they don't have any fears, run away, because that doesn't exist. This is you're in a tough business. We're in a tough business. And I think, Mike, one of the things that we have fears because we don't know when we have to deliver bad news once in a while, or we have to try to gain your business. And that's fear. And we have to deal with that, just like you do.
So you get to see all aspects of people's financial life. Like you poke and probe. There's not much in my financial life that you're not going to get. Do you ever find people like hesitant and reluctant to move forward with you because of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I will tell you, Mike, you preach all the time. People will do business with those people that they know, they like, and they trust. That last one becomes critical. You know, I'm a member of a very nice country club here in town, have been there for 18 years. I do a lot of business out of that club. And many of those people make lots of money. And for whatever reason, I don't understand it, they still want a mortgage. And so they turn in all of their documents to us. Now, unless they say something, I never disclose who I do business with at the club, although they talk about it all the time. But I will not. That's how you begin trust. So yes, we get lots of people who have lots of financials. The only way to get them to release that information is if they trust us.
So I get it. If you're willing to give me 3% money for 30 years, I'm going to take it and I'm going to keep my cash and do other things with it. I will. That's why it's leverage, and leverage is the great benefit to real estate. If I want to buy $100,000 worth of stock, I have to have $100,000. And once I buy the stock, it's now really not that liquid. But if I want to buy a house, I just come to you, you're going to give me your money and you're not going to charge me very much in return these days. I'll take your money. That's
a good thing. Thank you.
And it strikes me as I listen to your story that the thing that you and we have in common is, don't raise your hand right now, but if you've ever had somebody that you thought was your friend that decided not to do business with you and they hired somebody else and you spent the next 48 hours beating the living hell out of yourself, well, I just don't know how we can be friends anymore. And what did I do wrong? And on and on. And why they were my friend or they were my neighbor and why didn't they do business with me? Hey, if you and I were at the same golf club and I had to see you all the time and there were things that in my financial world that I didn't really want all my golf buddies to know about, I ain't going to you for my mortgage. I'd rather go to somebody I don't even know and that doesn't know anybody that I know.
And you know, that is one of the things that happens. And I think the way that I've overcome it over the years has been to just be an advisor. And I've built trust over being an advisor. And it wasn't about anybody ever giving me a mortgage. It was really more about, I wanted to be known as the person, if you had a question, to come to without advertising. I have never in 18 years sponsored an event at that club, not once.
So just think about for a second, how much trust and confidence you would have to have in Greg in a social setting to keep your stuff confidential before you would turn over your entire financial picture to him, because he might go tell people. I got to really trust you. And so folks, that's what you and I are earning every day. If you come into my office and sit down at my table, you're not going to talk to me about what's bothering you. If you think I'm telling the next person that comes in the room your intimate things in your life. And if you don't tell me that stuff, I can't help you. We got to get the demons out. Somebody in the room was telling me I need a leather couch in there and a pillow, and this is therapy. And I go, well, 99% of what we do is all up here in our head. If you're not going to tell me what's up there in your head, I can't help. But you're not going to tell me if you don't trust me. Greg, you did the mortgage for Jane and I, because I'll use your money. I will. I'll use anybody's money if you'll charge me 3%. I got to trust you that you're not going, hey, Ellen, I bet you didn't know this about Mike. David, something about what you do that would surprise us.
I think I would answer that by saying that I don't think a lot of people in our industry realize how much interplay there is between the actual real estate transaction and other areas of practice, whether it's probate, bankruptcy, divorce. the closing process seems like it's probably to the outside that it's very black and white. It's a very structured process. We're gathering information. We're doing a title search. And if you have a situation where there is a divorce, there's a settlement agreement, seems pretty black and white. But it isn't always that way. Because using my example of a divorce situation, a lot of settlement agreements are very vague. When they're written, they're not written with a closing in mind. They have, and divorce attorneys aren't worried about the ultimate closing. They're just trying to settle assets and debts for their clients. So a lot of times where these other areas of practice come into play, we still have to sometimes work with the parties involved to work out additional issues. And so there's some management there in doing that, especially in the divorce situation, because a lot of times you've got two people who are part of a transaction that probably don't like each other anymore. But we need them to some cooperation to calculate how much this party should get, how much this party should get. Because there's things in the settlement agreement that just aren't covered that have to be worked out. So in addition to having experience in these areas, because it's been a long time, but I represented people in divorces. I've represented people in bankruptcy. I've done a lot of probate work over the years. So we have a good handle on how those areas of practice interplay with the actual, ultimately with the closing. And what we try and do is make it as seamless as possible, even though there's kind of things going on in the background there that we're trying to sort out and get it to the closing table.
Hey, if Jane wanted to kick me out, and I imagine she has that thought from time to time with you know what our settlement agreement would be? She gets it all. That's how it would be. It'd be real simple for you. Mike, you don't get a dime. Jane, you get it all.
That's pretty much how
it
it
was
goes.
Funnier in my head than it actually came out in the thing. And that wasn't a hint or anything back there, honey. You and me forever, Jay.
That's the third person you've said that to today.
Oh, I told him
Bob
yesterday.
and Rip and now Jane.
This has a shelf life of maybe 30 days or more. David, man, there's a lot of closing attorneys in Atlanta. You've got a lot of competition and they promise everything. We don't have any problems with them and it's cheaper and cheaper. How do you compete in a highly competitive market? How do you differentiate yourself?
Well, I'd have to say, I think the biggest way that we try to set ourselves apart is the first word that comes to mind is flexibility. I try and have everybody in my office as flexible as possible. Now, at the end of the day, especially in the times we're in now, with the volume and, just our industry as a whole, somewhat bottlenecked at times. At the end of the day, you've got somebody who's trying to sell their house. They're moving, they have a closing. You've got a buyer, they've sold a house. The timing is critical. And sometimes all the pieces don't fall into place the way we plan them to. So we try and be flexible. I mean, I can't remember the last time I've ever said no to doing a closing. Whether it's at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night. If we are able to pull it together and it needs to happen so that everybody else's schedule, and it's a stressful time for everybody when you're moving, you're buying, you're selling, and then you find out, oh wait, got an issue, we're gonna have to push this closing back. Well, you push a closing back a full day, that could be catastrophic for possibly 3-4 other transactions that are happening.
Or
So-
you do a FaceTime closing.
Or you do a FaceTime closing.
And you've got your secret weapon there. You've heard me say, I love doing this because she hates the spotlight being on her. The best salesperson in the city of Atlanta. Yeah? You agree? Yeah, give it up to her. Yeah. I want to interrupt because I got like a whole page of questions here, but I want to let you jump in. Who has a question you want to ask these guys about the closing of the mortgage process? Okay, I'm coming back to you, so think about what it is. You've got a chance. Jay.
Weirdest thing I ever encountered. This just sticks out of my mind. It happened not too long ago. I had a guy come in for a closing, and of course, like in any closing office, we have a group of pens, pen holder, and at the time still had a candy dish on there. This is pre-COVID, and he literally walked in, and he was a seller, for all intents and purposes, nothing wrong with him. Came in, sat down, and just grabbed a handful of pens, almost the whole thing of pens, put it in his pocket. Then he did the same thing with the candy. And I mean, what am I going to say? I mean,
It wasn't one of the agents.
But
it wasn't one of the agents.
it wasn't. It was not an agent.
My pens keep disappearing.
But it was. As I'm talking, I'm still kind of laughing because, we just kind of rolled along just as if it was normal. And a couple of other people in the room, realtors and party on the other side, they're just kind of looking at me like they're waiting for me to say something. And I just kind of pretended like it didn't happen. I just kept rolling along.
Jay, I had a closing one time, and the purchaser was a professional dancer. And apparently she came in on her way to her dance engagement in her dance outfit that she starts with, which included, this is why I keep teasing some of you, when are you going to get the heels with the goldfish in them? Because she had the heels with the goldfish. That was a great hour. That was fascinating. Greg, the only thing there's more of than closing attorneys and real estate agents are mortgage people. How do you differentiate yourself?
My 31 years, 5 months ago, one of the first things that I decided to do was to find out what's most important to real estate agents. And over the 31 years, I've probably done 4 of these. I did surveys, and the surveys were to ask you what's most important to you. And although it's adjusted itself a little bit, it's really been pretty consistent over the 31 years. And so the idea of it was, how do you execute the 4 things that I've identified over these years that are most important to real estate agents? And the first one is communication. The second one is availability. The third one is consistency. And the fourth one is creativity. Now, I had to add a word in front of the word creativity to say legitimate legal creativity. We got to do that. But I think, Mike, it's the execution of those 4 things and the ability to be able to communicate on a regular basis. So, anybody who does business with us has probably seen some of the things that we do that make it unique. Now, it's interesting. None of the communication systems that we use, and one of them is, Bob, you've seen it. Camille, you've seen it. Worrell, the list goes on. Everybody, so many. You've seen what we call the genesis of your loan. I have shared that with probably 1,000 loan officers over the 31 years. There is one other loan officer that uses something even close to that. He also has 7. They're very similar to mine, just much longer than ours are. So it's really coming up with what are things that set you apart. And to show you how that works is that nearly 70% of all the real estate agents that I work with today that refer business to me, Mike, were once on the listing side of a presentation. And the reason that they've come here is they've said your communication was unparalleled to anything that they've seen. Now, there are some other companies and loan officers that, in my opinion, do a phenomenal job with communication, but I think it's a handful of people. So how can you be one of those people that stand out? And then it's over time. That's where the consistency comes in number 3. You've got to be consistent. It has to happen over and over and over and over and over again. Because you made a comment earlier about the fact that we're going to make mistakes. We are going to make mistakes. But if I've got a long enough history with Worrell, for example, if I've got a long enough history with you, when that one mistake happens, I'm going to break my back to correct it. You won't throw me under the bus.
I actually think that's your opportunity. I think what you guys did yesterday with Rip and his transaction was your opportunity. You put Humpty Dumpty back together again with the heroic effort. And if the problem had never come up, if you didn't have problems, if you didn't have a chance to fix it, then you just look like everybody else. And to your point, yeah, you guys just sit there and say, sign here. And you just keep flipping papers over, right? I mean, I've been in real estate closings. What do you do? You don't do anything. You're watching me sign a stack of papers.
They just prop me up in the closing and I just flip papers. You're right.
That's right. Hey, I want to show you how this translates to us. Watch this. You hear what Greg just said, right? So Greg just demonstrated to you his value proposition. Greg's trying to answer the question that everybody verbally or non-verbally is asking. Why should I use you? They're thinking that every customer you're ever going to interact with, whether they say it to you or not, is saying this. Why should I hire you? There's 43,000 of you in Atlanta. So I want you to watch this. Completely unprepared and unrehearsed. Lanier, why should I hire you to sell my house?
Mike, there's a few reasons that people normally enjoy working with me. One would be for the maximum exposure on their property. We're going to make sure that every eyeball in the Atlanta market sees your property, understands why you love the homes, but they can fall in with the home. Second will be my negotiation strategy. We're going to make sure that we don't just find an offer for your home. We're going to find the right offer that's going to get to the closing table. And third would be communication. I want to make sure that we have an open line of communication. It's got to go two ways. It's got to be back and forth to make sure that everything going on with the market and with your property, you know when I know. Which of those would be most important to you?
How long have you had your real estate license?
2 months.
2 months. With a camera in his face and 60 people staring him down completely. Did you have any idea I was coming to you with that? No. Why should I list my home with you? Well, one of 3 reasons, one of 4 reasons, and be able to speak to them. Now, for our conversation this morning, what do you need to adjust to that?
Tighten it and come up with some identifiable names for things so that they sound polished and professional.
Yeah, come up with a name with your marketing strategy or your communication plan, right? What's the term? There you go. There you go. Children. Yeah. Negotiating strategy. Or in McGee speak, my 186-point marketing plan. But Greg doesn't have 186 points. He just has 4. But you heard him say it. Through his experience, it's the 4 things he thinks is the most important to his customer. Who's your customer?
Everybody in this room.
Right. Wasn't the borrower his customer? Yeah, kind of, right? Mm-hmm. So my wife takes our dog to the vet yesterday. Who's the vet's customer? Jane, right. The dog's like the reason to be there, but the dog doesn't choose the vet. Jane, the customer doesn't choose the mortgage company most of the time. They're going on your recommendation. Greg's job is to get your recommendation. Your job is to get people's recommendation. Listen to these guys. They're highly successful in what they do. See what ideas you can steal from them. That's the whole concept. Okay, we're going to take a little departure here because this is a little too corporate-ish and good, really refined talking points here. You guys practice this up a little too good. So hey, we're going to have some fun. And I want you, if you got a question, raise your hand. I'm going to come straight to you. Okay? We'll start with you. What drives you crazy about working with real estate agents? You better tell the truth. We're not leaving this until you tell us.
No, I love that. You know, I'll be glad. No, there are really, I classify real estate agents in two areas. Two areas. No, I did not say the word clowns. I said there is the agent who is sensitive, and there is the agent who doesn't really know what
You're
they're
not
doing.
answering the question.
Yes, now let me finish. So you asked the question. Okay. Many agents, the sensitive ones, they understand Memorial Day weekend may not have as much availability. Then there are the other agents. They are the ones that drive me crazy. Okay, I got a call. This is what drives me crazy. I got a call, 2 calls over the weekend. Thankfully, no one from this room.
Good, then we can have some fun with it.
The agent calls me and leaves a voicemail and says, I need to talk to you right away. One of my clients wants to write an offer and they need to be pre-approved. And I'm like, I went outside to my wife and I said, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, seriously, it's Memorial Day weekend. They've got a client in the car that has not been pre-approved and they want to write an offer. Now,
Cart before the horse.
I have to calm down. You can tell my voice got excited. Okay. So I had to slow it down a little bit. And when I calmed down, I did return the 2 phone calls. And I said to both of them, I said, can they wait till Tuesday? And, they had to wait till Tuesday. But that's what drives me crazy is people ask the craziest
Greg,
things.
do you need a hug? It's okay. Okay, well, let's find out from you. What drives you crazy about us? Like,
I
what
would
makes
say
you
that
drink
the
at night?
one thing that jumps out at me is the ones that ghost us. The ones that, you get the contract and we try and be proactive and start, gathering information as soon as we can. And when we don't get that information, especially if it's from a buyer or seller, we reach out to the realtors and we reach out to the realtors. And then we reach out to the realtors. And then, of course, now we're getting close to the closing. And for instance, if we don't have the seller's information, their loan number, if they've got a payoff, tax ID number, that's part of our process. We can't move forward. And so then, when we finally get that information, now we're at the 11th hour and we're scrambling a little bit. And I just had this happen. It's the 11th hour and we're scrambling to get a payoff. And again, just like everything else in this industry, everything is just taking longer to get. So it gets pulled together at the 11th hour and it closes. And the realtor calls me up after the fact and he says, hey, I got to give you some feedback on this closing. It just seemed like you guys weren't prepared. You guys, it kind of happened that, everything got pulled together at the last minute. It closed and, it was fine, but I just don't understand why, that happened. So at that point, I don't know all the specifics about it. So I go to the 2 people in my office that worked on the file, and they proceed to tell me that just like on his last 3 closings, 0 communication, 0, not even a response, not even a responding email, not a response to a phone call.
So can I jump in here? Can I make an observation?
Sure.
We gave both of these guys the full opportunity to voice any complaint they had about us. And what complaint did both of them seize on? And what's the number one complaint that consumers have had about us for the past 3 decades? Do you think that there's a message here? Do you think that if everybody's saying the same thing, that maybe each of us ought to get really good at what? Communication. Because you heard, hey, they had it like like, that's the only thing, right? When, as an agent, when I was like Bob's age, my broker was a raging alcoholic and had a bottle of whiskey in the bottom right drawer of his desk. And I never quite,
He was a partner of mine too.
he was, and am I exaggerating?
No.
No. And I never quite understood that. Like, why do you keep liquor in the, oh, I fully get it now. Go check the bottom right drawer of my desk. Big bottle of scotch down there, and I'm hitting it often. They could have picked from a long list of crazy, and they both chose communication. Let's have a little wild card moment first. What drives you crazy about us? Top of mind, you don't get to think about it, just spit it out. Go ahead, say it, and you'll hate yourself later for it.
It's just back to communication. If there's a problem on file and I don't learn about it until the 11th hour, I don't have enough time to make it right. So communication is communication. As soon as you figure out that, hey, this could be a problem, then let me know right then and there, because if you wait until the 11th hour, I don't have enough time to turn that ship around and make everybody happy, but I can dance. So, I mean, even if it's the 10th hour, give me an extra hour, especially on Friday. I'll get a call at 5 o'clock. Well, 5 o'clock, most of my people are gone, people. So then I got to figure out, how I'm going to do this without the people that I need behind their desks and computers to be able to generate that answer. So I just need a little bit more time to dance.
And watch this. So they'll take a lot of punches. They'll just absorb them. What David didn't say, which I know has to be really high on his list, is lenders that get closing packages to him at 11:30 for a 12 o'clock closing. They're not throwing the lender under the bus. They're not telling you the truth. They're going to take the punches, and your customer is going to show up in their office and sit there. And you're going to be going, we had a 12 o'clock closing. Can y'all not get your stuff? You've had weeks to get ready for this.
Okay, you just made me think of something else.
I want to ask you a different question, because I know that puts you in a very awkward situation.
Well, it's more about, I guess, back to, something that is aggravating with realtors is we try and manage the process. And when we see the process not happening the way everybody wants it to happen, then we get to a point where we have to say, okay, we've got to change the process, meaning this closing can't happen at this time. And, we go back to realtor or lender because we know what's going to happen. It's going to be, and in working with different lenders, you kind of know, how their process is. And again, it is what it is. Lenders are bottlenecked. They're doing their best to push out closings.
No, they're not. They're a bunch of scallywags, and they're throwing you under the bus and making you look bad.
No, they do throw us under the bus, but
they do. Okay,
but you're right. We absorb.
Okay, so next question, real quick. Okay, I want a real quick comment from you on this. End of the month, Friday the 30th closings. One quick comment.
Please don't ever do them.
One quick comment.
It's been my professional goal to try and stop realtors from doing that.
Why? That's when my customer wants to close.
I don't think they do. That's when you told them to close.
Well, I want to get paid.
You told them
no,
that
they skip a month. It's cheaper to close on Friday the 30th. It's cheaper. I don't have to bring as much cash to closing.
There's some truth to that, but I don't think there is, Greg. And you could probably elaborate more than me.
There's no savings. It's, people think there's this mystique that goes back, in my case, 31 years, that if you close at the end of the month, you're not going to spend as much money. That's ridiculous. Okay. It's just not that affects maybe 1 out of every 100 closings, maybe.
Okay. Here's why we do it. Just a little show of hands. Who's ever seen the old movie Fiddler on the Roof? Okay. And the big song from that movie is Tradition, right? And the whole song, the guy's singing the song, why do I do this? Because my father did it and his father did it and his father did it. I don't even know why I do it. I just do it because it's tradition. That's why we do that, because that's the way we've always done it. And I'm telling you, keep doing that and you're going to have all kinds of problems, because what these guys will not say to you, but I'll say to you, is they can't staff for that. David can't go out and hire all the people he needs to be able to handle all the closings happening on Friday the 30th, and then have them sit around the rest of the month with not much to do. Well, why don't they be getting ready for the next month's closing? Because Greg hadn't given him the closing package yet. And David knows that Greg's not going to give it to him until like an hour before a closing, if then. Your customer's sitting in their lobby eating their candy and waiting to close, and they're still printing off the closing package that just came in from Greg. But they don't want to throw Greg under the bus. So they're like, well, we're doing the best we can. Meanwhile, you never really know what the whole problem is. Quit doing that. Space them out during the month. You'll have so fewer problems. Okay, next question. Crystal ball time. We're not going to let you out of the room without crystal ball time, because we all sit around and worry about this. We all have anxiety. We're all worried. We see what the real estate market's doing now, and all of us suspect this cannot continue. There's going to be a price to pay for this. This cannot continue forever, or we won't be able to afford to buy homes. So I want you to look into your very murky crystal ball this morning and tell us what 1 year from today looks like, 2 years from today, and 5 years from today. David, let's start with you.
I would say 1 year from today, I think it's still going to be busy. I think values are going to flatten out a little bit. I think that, like you said, that can't continue to happen. I don't see I don't know how many people in the room were here in this industry in 2008, but I don't see a 2008 coming, because I think lending is still relatively conservative. It hasn't, we're not seeing the things that we saw back leading up to 2008, which was anybody could get a mortgage basically. And, people were buying $500,000 homes without putting a dollar down. So I don't see that happening, but this can't continue. There has to be a correction. And everybody, I think, because historically it's about every 10 years there's a correction, but I think 2008 was so different and it took so long to come out of it. I don't think we're even though we're beyond 10 years, I think the first 3 years, 4 years even, coming out of 2008, that's kind of our starting point for a 10-year correction.
Okay, 5 years from today. You have to do projections like this for your business.
Yeah, I say 5 years from today, I think the market will have leveled off. Values will have leveled off. I think we're fortunate in this area, and I can compare, having lived in a much different market where I came from, that Atlanta is always going to be a busy real estate market. It's very transient, very corporate. There's always going to be people relocating and vice versa, leaving this area. So I think it's going to level off, but it'll still be steady busy.
Okay, Greg, 1 year from today.
1 year from today, I did a little bit of what David said. I think that I don't see a downturn. I simply see that it'll get a little flat. Inventory will increase and will be flat. I don't even think we'll be normal then. Normal being 6 months. I don't think we'll be there. I still think we're going to still be very busy, but probably not quite like we are today.
5 years from today.
Mike, if I knew even
No,
close to what that answer
no
is.
disclaimers. 5 years from today. We're
Okay.
recording this, and we're going to put
You're
this in
gonna
a
hold
time
me to
capsule
it.
and pull it out.
5 years from today, we're going to be in one of the most robust real estate markets you're going to see. And I'll tell you why.
Because you're an internal optimist. That's why.
Yes, my wife says I wear rose-colored glasses. No, I truly do. I don't think we're going to be in a market like we're in today, where you're getting 5, 6, 7, 10 offers on it, but we're going to be in a very robust market. And the reason why all these people who are moving in, there's got to be a reason why I'm saying it. All these people that are coming in from New York and California and Illinois and Michigan, they're buying houses here. Many of them are buying houses that they're settling for because it's too competitive. Guess what? In 4, 5, and 6 years from now, those people are going to be settled here. They're going to be looking for something that is really going to meet their needs long term. They're not going to go flocking back to, to Chicago and to New York and to Los Angeles.
No, hell, they ain't going back to Niagara
No.
Falls.
Well,
They're
and
not.
Hell no.
but what I'm saying is that market is going to turn. And it's going to turn for the now, anything else can happen. But the thing is, they're settling for houses today, settling because they don't have any choice. As soon as they get choices, this market is going to be robust. Every one of us in this room is in a time period that we have an opportunity to do things right now that are going to build a business for the middle of this decade that is going to launch. It's going to make 27 million look like, oh my gosh, we could do that.
Okay,
So
Mr.
get ready.
Optimism. Okay, so let's finish here, and we will finish here. They're crazy. Here's the truth. You got 1 year. You got 1 year. And you better make hay while the sun's shining, because here's an opposite view of that. What's the big driver going on out there today? Yeah, your low interest rates are contributing to it, but people still have to qualify. Yeah, COVID played havoc with the inventory supply, but here's the big mover, Wall Street. And I'm going to make the contention that 2008 could be looming for us, but it won't be a mortgage meltdown this time, because the same people that were making the crappy mortgages back in 2000 to 2006 are back in the game now. They're just not making mortgages. They're buying houses. They own over 25,000 single-family homes in Metro Atlanta. They're why the market's overheated right now. Absent them, roll it back 5 years before this new asset class, which is what they like to call it, was created, before Zillow was buying homes and Open Door and OfferPad and all these hedge funds like Pretium and Invitation Homes. Roll it back 5 or 6 years. And yeah, we're still in a seller's market right now because Greg's giving away money cheap. It's still a seller's market. It's just a seller's market. You're just able to get your listing sold, but you don't have 30 offers on every listing the first day. It's not overheated. What's going on right now? These big funds with unlimited capital behind them, unlimited, and an insatiable thirst to put the capital to work, are out buying homes. They're competing against your customers, and your customers, John and Sally, can't compete. And they're driving up homes. Why? Because they don't care what they pay for the home. That's where it's escalated to. Why? It's not their money. It's not their money. Whose money is it? SoftBank's, Wall Street's money. You probably many people in this room have invested in this stuff. It's not their money. They don't care. When the crash happens, just like in 08, Goldman Sachs didn't get hurt. Well, they did, but then what happened? Well, we bailed them out. And what'd they do with the bailout money that we gave them? Our money. They turned around and started buying up the very houses that they loaned the bad mortgages on that now were at half price, and they now own them. And they're now worth 150% of what they bought them for with our money because they were too big to fail. What's going on? Well, this has happened before. It's happened in Toronto. Now, I don't think this would happen in the United States, but I think some variation of this is going to happen because your customers are getting rubbed out of the marketplace. They can't compete to get the home they want. When the politicians wake up to this, here's what they did in Toronto. On a Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock, the Canadian government passed a law that said only Canadian citizens can buy homes. And it was being fueled. They were going through the same exact thing that we're going on right now. And that was being fueled in Toronto by the international investor market, the Chinese. And they put a stop to that shit in one day. And Friday morning, you woke up and their real estate market went flat. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have what's called a first look initiative on their foreclosure inventory. Only owner occupants can make offers on their homes for the first 30 days. Some variation of that's coming to this marketplace. Once the politicians get wind that they can score a lot of points by calming this real estate market down. How you do that in the United States, I can't see, but I have no doubt that's going to happen. And then your market's going to turn on you in a heartbeat, and you're not going to be able to predict how and when. You're not. Just like in 08, we all thought, didn't we? We thought foreclosure inventory was going to be increasing. We didn't see worldwide economic collapse. Nobody talked about that. They just talked about, well, there's going to be a lot more foreclosures coming on the market. You could see a hint of it. You couldn't see the whole picture. If you could have, you would have shorted every stock on the planet and you would have made a fortune. Who's ever seen the movie The Big Short? If you haven't and you want to see what really happened, that's a pretty good movie. You have 1 year. If you can't sell real estate today, you can't sell real estate. I'll be the guy that says that to you. Well, it's too hard. There's no homes to sell. Hey, don't tell this guy, 27. Don't tell her. Don't tell some of these people that, take a look at this. Watch. Those people that I asked to stand up, that's $85.5 million worth of sales out of those 3 people. Don't tell them, or those 5 people. Don't tell them. Don't tell them that there's nothing to buy, that nobody wants to put their house up for sale. Maybe they just don't want to do it with you. My 5-year prediction, real estate agents going away? Nah, you're good. Lisa, you're good. Rob Scanlon, you're good. Lanier, guarantee it. Some of you, you're not going anywhere. Matter of fact, you're going to look back and say, why did I only do 27 million? Weak ass. 9 o'clock, Bob. B. Some of you are still going to be here in 5 years, and some of you are going to be selling a lot of real estate, more than you can imagine. You're going to be making more money than you can imagine, but half the room's gone, extinct. Why? They're coming for your business. Hey, David McGee, greedy. He wants his business. He's coming for yours. He's calling your customers every day. Every day, he's coming for you. You can't sell houses in this market. You can't sell houses. You have 1 year to make hay. I would. And then what's going to happen? I don't know, but I don't like it. But I also know this. Here's the good news. Let's finish on a little uptick, okay? Because I'm freaking some of you out. Some of you are like, oh my God. Here's the good news. Great agents thrive in all markets. I made the most money in my career in 2011. Like stupid money. My wife bought me a car Monday with that money. Not with your money, with that money that I made 10 years ago. In the heart of the deepest recession in world history, I made the most money. Why? I did what great agents do. That's what I had been taught. I adapted and I changed to the environment in which I found myself. Adapt or die. The fact is, some of you aren't going to be here in a year. Some of you aren't going to be here in 2 years, and most of you aren't going to be here in 5. I just don't know which ones of you that is, but you get to choose. And if you don't know how to choose, my office is right outside that back door. You come see me and I'll show you. I can show you. You have to do it. I can't do it for you. I could, but I'm too damn old. Okay? come see me. I'll make sure, if you're willing to do the heavy lifting, I'll make sure you're still here in 5 years and you're sitting with him and with her and you're laughing about why'd we only do that? When I was your age, I sat in a ballroom and watched a guy named John Menifee get the #1 agent in a Georgia award for selling 300 homes. And I sat there in the ballroom and I thought, that's not real. There's a gimmick. My wife says I'm the most skeptical human on the planet. I don't know where she gets that from because I hear stuff like that and I go, that's not possible. And then in 2011, I sold 1,504. I sold 5 times what that guy who I said, that's not physically possible. I did that times 5. And you will too. You'll be sitting here going, when I was just doing 27 million, why didn't you give me a hard time? I could have been doing 50 to 100 million and working less. You could. You could. I don't know if you will. But if you want to, I can show you how to do it. Deal? Let's go to work.